When 17-year-old Croatian Jovanka Budisavljević decided to join the communist underground during World War II, the Balkans were experiencing some uninvited guests, the Germans and their allies. These party crashers were on a quest to secure a route to the oil fields of Eastern Europe and the Near East. They bulldozed through the army of the Kingdom of Yugoslavia, dissolved its government, and occupied the country. Meanwhile, Josip Broz, also known as Tito and Secretary General of the Yugoslav Communist Party, was busy assembling a partisan army, basically the ultimate underdog story. He called upon Jovanka, who cinched her long ammunition belt around her waist and enlisted in the Yugoslav Liberation Front. Thus began her life of glamour, filled with the delightful trifecta of battling the enemy, hunger, disease, and cold. How this small, weakened, half-starved guerrilla fighter went from rags to First Lady of Yugoslavia and was known for her extraordinary elegance is a tale fit for the tabloids. But this meteoric rise from poverty to the arm of the most powerful man in a multi-ethnic state came with a steep price tag. Jovanka wore many hats: beloved, wife, housekeeper, nurse, and confidante, supporting Tito like the Swiss Army knife of spouses. Her tireless efforts were rewarded with poor appreciation. As the two aged and fell out of favor, rumors spread that she had aspirations of power, leading to her isolation by her husband's successors. This 2-decade-long solitary confinement proved that gratitude, much like fashion, can be painfully fleeting. Welcome to Wicked History, everyone. If there are other historical bizarreries you'd like to see explored, drop a suggestion in the comments. Now let's dive in. Jovanka Budisavljević made her grand entrance into the world on December 7, 1924, in a Croatian mountain village near the Bosnian border, a place so remote it practically came with its own survival guide. Back then, the folks in the Lika mountain region had stars in their eyes for the new world, dreaming of an easier life. Among the hopeful was her father, Miko, a farm laborer who believed America was the land of milk and honey, if by milk and honey you mean back-breaking labor. He tried his luck in Chicago, San Francisco, and Cleveland, hoping to earn enough to bring his family over, but alas, his American dream turned out to be a mirage. The Great Depression hit, and Miko found supporting himself difficult, let alone saving money for a transatlantic family reunion. In 1933, he returned home with nothing but a few words of English, probably not the polite ones, and a suitcase full of American tales. After Jovanka's mother passed away during the birth of her youngest daughter, Jovanka dropped out of school and donned the cape of domestic superhero, taking care of the household and her younger siblings. She soon mastered the fine arts of cooking, baking, washing, ironing, and cleaning, skills that every aspiring guerrilla fighter needs. At the tender age of 16, Jovanka's life took a darker turn when Germany and Italy occupied her homeland, turning it into a real-life dystopia. Ante Pavelic, leader of the fascist Ustasa movement, set up a puppet state with Mussolini's backing. The Ustasa enthusiastically joined the Axis powers in ethnic cleansing, turning the country into a nightmare for Serbs, Jews, and Roma. Meanwhile, the partisans, led by Josip Broz Tito, were playing hide-and-seek in the mountains of Montenegro and Bosnia-Herzegovina, aiming to liberate the country. Josip Broz, born on May 25, 1892, to a Slovenian mother and a Croatian father in Kumrovec, Croatia, back when it was still part of Austria-Hungary, was one of 15 children. In a family that could have fielded its own soccer team, only 7 made it past infancy. At 18, Josip joined the Metalworkers' Union and later served in the Austro-Hungarian army during World War I, where he was wounded and captured by the Russians. During his year-long captivity, he joined the Bolshevik Revolution of 1917. Talk about an eventful gap year. 2 arrests and escapes later, he found sanctuary with a family who helped him flee to the Kyrgyz mountains, a locale not typically found on tourist brochures. Returning to Yugoslavia in 1920, his first child died shortly after. Ever the optimist, Tito became a member and agitator of the Communist Party. He and his wife Polka had several children, but only their son Zarko survived. In 1928, Tito's political antics landed him in prison, and his wife and son returned to their homeland, where she died in 1938. That same year, Josip remarried Slovenian Berta Haas, proving that even revolutionaries need a bit of stability at home. Before Tito, Jovanka had another flame, Stefan Matic, a young communist from her neck of the woods in Lika, met an untimely end early in the war. His family, who were partisan sympathizers but played it cool, kept his involvement hush-hush. Jovanka laid flowers on his grave and recited a poem, genuinely admiring his commitment to changing the horrors and atrocities of the time, a goal she shared. Fast forward a few decades, and journalists sniffing around for Tito's backstory in Lika stumbled upon the tale of young partisan Stefan Matic, who was allegedly Jovanka's first love. When pressed about it, Jovanka would shake her head in bewilderment, saying, "Sure, I laid flowers and recited a poem, but we didn't even know each other." After her father remarried and she was relieved of her siblings' sitting duties, Jovanka joined the partisan army in 1942. The moment she was handed a weapon, reality hit her like a ton of bricks. She had signed up to kill people. The partisans were the good guys, fighting against countrymen killing foes who needed expelling. But did the guy she was about to shoot really deserve a one-way ticket to the afterlife? Initially, these doubts gnawed at her, but over time they faded. The fact that her target could spin around and shoot her first certainly helped her resolve. Life in the underground was no picnic. They launched surprise attacks on small military units and engaged in sabotage, blowing up trains, bridges, and supply routes to harass the enemy. A major headache was the scarcity of food, clothing, and essentials. Jovanka sometimes walked barefoot in winter, wrapping her feet in cloth to trudge through snow and ice. Despite these hardships, she and the other partisans kept fighting the good fight. In November 1942, Tito, now a German's worst nightmare, established an anti-fascist People's Liberation Committee, crowning himself Marshal of Yugoslavia. By 1944, the partisans, under Tito's prime ministerial baton, liberated Belgrade. Around this time, Jovanka caught typhus. Her comrades brought her to the HQ of Supreme Commander Josip Broz Tito, who nursed her back to health. There are various tales about their first meeting, including two versions from Jovanka herself. In the earlier, more heroic version, she claimed to have saved Tito's life during an ambush. But years later, during an interview, she sang a different tune. "I saw him in 1944, like everyone else did. I was just one among many partisans in a public square in Drvar at a memorial ceremony for fallen comrades from Bosnia. Tito was there, shaking hands with each of us. It was a grand moment for me," Jovanka recalled, "but I only got to know him well when I started working at the Secretariat in Belgrade in 1945. Before Tito's crew went all liberators of Yugoslavia in 1944, things were, let's say, a tad chaotic. Once they managed to kick out the unwelcome fascist guests, Tito and his gang wasted no time turning the place upside down with communist reforms. They went on a land grab spree, whipped up a new constitution, nationalized the economy, and why not, violently squashed all domestic political opposition. They proclaimed the Federative People's Republic of Yugoslavia, a patchwork of socialist republics including Bosnia-Herzegovina, Croatia, Macedonia, Montenegro, Serbia, and Slovenia. Naturally, they quickly snagged a spot as a founding member of the United Nations. Their goal? To permanently evict German settlers from the Danube, Drava, and Sava regions. An eyewitness account paints a grim picture of partisans raiding houses, rounding up every male aged 14 to 70, and treating them to a buffet of chains and torture. Some partisans, looking like extras in a horror flick with blood-smeared hands, faces, and clothes, carted these men off to the woods for execution. This grim routine unfolded in hundreds of German villages. Survivors of the Danube Swabians recall the darkest chapter. German children, orphaned and corralled into Yugoslav internment camps, were indoctrinated with the cheerful mantra, "Tito is your father, the state your mother." Meanwhile, Jovanka's career trajectory took her from the battlefield to the White Palace in Belgrade, Tito's official and private digs, with a shiny new title of lieutenant. Now rubbing elbows with the great Marshal himself, she still hadn't caught a whiff that they might become more than comrades. Seeing Tito, even from afar, sent her into a starstruck stupor. She idolized the man who had booted out the fascists and strutted around with the glory of a victor and the aura of a powerful statesman. Despite Jovanka's idol worship, Tito was no stranger to playing the field. Even before he ditched his second wife, he indulged in a series of flings, including a fiery affair with his secretary Jovanka Paunović-Zdenka. The pair were practically glued together in the White Palace. When Jovanka kicked the bucket in 1946, Tito was a wreck, vowing never to fall in love again. Of course, that vow was about as sturdy as a wet paper bag. He didn't shy away from romantic dalliances, often having a friend deliver young women to his doorstep like pizza. Thus, Jovanka Budisavljević found herself caught in Tito's web of charm and casual affairs. Her friend Stevo, ever the matchmaker, suggested the famous Yugoslav opera singer Zinka Kunk, a woman whose beauty and brains were as renowned as her vocal range. When Stevo floated the idea to Jovanka about spending a night with Tito, she jumped at the chance, thrilled to serve the great Marshal in any way possible. However, Tito's romance with Zinka hit a sour note. She had a mind of her own and frequently cited fatigue, headaches, or prior engagements at prestigious opera houses and concert halls worldwide as reasons to bail. Eventually, Tito circled back to Stevo with a laundry list of complaints, longing for a steady girlfriend who was beautiful, kind, less intelligent, and definitely less popular. Essentially, he wanted a devoted partner without the diva demands. Thus, his tumultuous affair with Zinka Kunk ended, and he turned his attention back to his ever-growing pile of political headaches, particularly the one named Stalin. The Soviet leader had grand visions of turning Yugoslavia into a Soviet vassal state, but Tito, ever the maverick, resisted fiercely with his unique brand of nationalism-tinged communism and homegrown socialism. This defiant stance led to a dramatic split with Stalin in 1948. "I will move my little finger, and there will be no more Tito," raged the Soviet leader, apparently unaware that even his little finger lacked the Midas touch. The Cominform, the Soviet-dominated Communist Information Bureau, issued a resolution demanding Yugoslavia bow to the Kremlin. The resolution was hotly debated in Yugoslavia, leaving many party members feeling like they were auditioning for a role in a Shakespearean tragedy, uncertain whom to support and whom to brand as the villain. Although it was clear Tito opposed the resolution, his recent crackdown on Stalin-critical dissidents had everyone walking on eggshells. Many, hoping to avoid Tito's ire, voted for the resolution. This turned out to be a spectacular misjudgment. 15,000 Yugoslav Stalinists were shipped off to a re-education camp on a picturesque island off the Dalmatian coast. There they enjoyed a hellish regimen of beatings, torture and harassment from both guards and radical Stalinist inmates. It was like a dystopian reality show, minus the cameras and prize money. Stalin's ultimatum was flatly refused, leading the Soviet Union to kick the Yugoslav Communist Party out of the Cominform. This left Tito at a crossroads: capitulate or confront. Ever the rebel, he chose the latter, steering Yugoslavia down its own socialist path, and proving that sometimes the best defense against a dictator's little finger is a firm, defiant fist. As previously noted, the Marshal had enough problems to fill a blockbuster trilogy. Yet even amidst the chaos, he couldn't help but notice the stunning Jovanka when their paths crossed in a white palace corridor. Clearly, she made an impression on him that stuck like glue. She was 24, and he was 56, making their encounter a real-life May-December romance. Jovanka barely knew what hit her. That same evening, she found herself with a golden ticket to watch a movie with Tito in his private screening room. Afterward, they chatted, and to her surprise, he had her escorted home without the cliché bedroom detour. Over time, their rendezvous became routine. The great Marshal seemed to relish the company of the young, beautiful woman, who gazed at him with starry-eyed admiration. Once they established that Tito was the head honcho in all matters, including the boudoir, their relationship smoothed out like a well-ironed shirt. Jovanka's career took off, with promotions to captain and then major, though these titles were just fancy labels. For years, Tito had been the focal point of her life, and now he had entered her orbit for real. She could finally be near him, talk to him, and display her reverence in person. That was all that mattered. Meanwhile, Stalin, ever the drama king, was still hell-bent on subjugating Tito. In the summer of 1949, he slapped a total trade embargo on Yugoslavia, thinking this would bring Tito to his knees. Tito, however, played the West card, securing support from nations that found him a valuable ally. The West, eager to widen the Soviet rift, threw its weight behind Yugoslavia. Stalin, betting on Tito's collapse post-Moscow split, realized he had miscalculated. The Balkan state remained on high alert, anticipating a Soviet attack. In this nail-biting scenario, Jovanka played the role of the perfect partner, hitting all the right notes. She was there when Tito needed her, doing her best to bring a semblance of peace and balance to his tumultuous life. She managed his physical and mental well-being with the skill of a seasoned caretaker. If Tito didn't have time for her, she stepped back without a fuss. Jovanka made no demands, completely subordinating herself to his desires and wishes. She seemed to seek nothing but the satisfaction of the man she idolized. Material benefits or special influence? Not on her radar. She was content just being with him and proud when he shared his plans and goals, making her his confidante. When Tito finally popped the question at the start of 1952, making Jovanka's deepest wish come true, the world remained blissfully oblivious. Their wedding was a clandestine affair, as low-key as a celebrity's trip to the grocery store in sunglasses and a hat. The couple exchanged vows in a small, secret ceremony. Jovanka Broz Tito later recounted, "We married in a very small circle. I wore a red dress. We then had a small celebration at our villa in Dedinje, and my two younger sisters Zora and Nada came to visit. That was all. We did not announce it because here in Yugoslavia, private life is not a public matter." Adding a touch of irony, she revealed that Tito had dismissed her from her rank of major post-wedding, deciding it was unnecessary for the marshal's wife to hold such a title. Jovanka traded her military stripes for household stripes, taking on the role of chief domestic officer. The honeymoon phase kicked off with an extended stay at Tito's summer retreat on the idyllic Croatian island of Brijuni. Austrian Foreign Minister Gruber, during a casual state visit, didn't even twig that the charming woman at Tito's side was his newlywed wife. The couple relished their game of marital hide-and-seek, delaying the official marriage announcement. The big reveal came 5 months later, not with a flashy headline, but via an invitation to a reception for British Foreign Minister Anthony Eden and his wife on September the 19th, 1952. The invite read, "Marshal Josip Tito and Mrs. Josip Broz Tito cordially invite." The news exploded like a tabloid bombshell. The Associated Press swiftly informed the Globe, a smiling, dark-eyed brunette of 28 who joined Tito's partisan army 10 years ago. The 60-year-old premier's third wife wore a fashionable burgundy evening gown at her first public appearance. The occasion was a reception at the magnificent White Palace, the seat of the government, in honor of British Foreign Minister Eden. Mrs. Tito stole the show at this reception. The wives of the diplomatic corps, perhaps the most critical of all present, were full of praise for her charm and her demeanor in greeting guests and the way she later moved among them. Tito was a proud bridegroom. At dinner, she sat by his side as he conversed with Mr. Eden. The world marveled at the grand reveal of Mrs. Tito, whose introduction into the public eye was nothing short of a cinematic debut. Amidst the diplomatic who's who, Jovanka's charm and grace were the talk of the town, turning what could have been another stuffy political gathering into the event of the season. Tito, basking in the glow of his bride, proved that even world leaders can have their fairy tale moments, albeit with a few more Secret Service agents in the background. When asked at a subsequent press conference why she married Tito, Jovanka quipped, "It may disappoint you, but I loved and still love my husband, and that is the only reason." Whether this answer deflated the journalist or not, it was, let's say, selectively factual. She had idolized the great Marshal as a young partisan, though she didn't know him from Adam. When Stevo later suggested a rendezvous with Tito, she agreed faster than a soldier saluting a superior, eager to serve the great Marshal in every way. Once she got to know the most powerful man in Yugoslavia privately, he accepted her because she followed his every whim without question. If any other man, especially one more than 32 years her senior, had treated her similarly, the self-assured, battle-hardened partisan would have told him to take a long walk off a short pier. Tito's allure was a potent cocktail of power and prestige, which evidently worked better than any love potion. Tito, it turns out, had a taste for the finer things in life that would make a Kardashian blush. His lifestyle boasted not just the White Palace and the villa on Brijuni, but also a castle in Slovenia and a smattering of residences and hunting lodges across Yugoslavia. Years later, an American journalist complimented Jovanka on her lavish homes and their tasteful decor, but the First Lady quickly nipped the praise in the bud. "These houses do not belong to me," she declared. "We only use them. They belong to the people." Tito was the poster child for the personality cult, often strutting in public like a peacock in his pristine white ceremonial uniforms. He started wearing a toupee early on and loved posing with hunting trophies, limousines and motor yachts, a far cry from the proletariat. His tastes included gourmet food, fine clothing, and luxurious living. He found his bliss in the countryside, indulging in hunting, horseback riding, and swimming, surrounded by his children, grandchildren, friends, colleagues, loyal followers, dogs, and horses. Wherever the family set up camp, a parade of maids, butlers, cooks, chauffeurs, gardeners, servants, and housekeepers followed. Jovanka seamlessly integrated into this extravagant life. Her daily routine took a drastic turn post-marriage. Instead of reporting to her office at the White Palace, she now spent her mornings discussing household matters and the day's menu with the housekeeper. Her afternoons were a revolving door of hairdressers, tailors, and milliners. She had to give interviews to women's magazines and attend events hosted by women's organizations. Jovanka developed a particular interest in children's toys, advocating for designs that were psychologically appropriate for each age group. After her stellar performance at the reception for the British Foreign Minister, Tito bestowed upon her the official duties of the First Lady. She accompanied him on state visits, standing by his side to greet heads of state and government leaders, including Prime Minister Pandit Nehru of India, Guy Mollet of France, the Negus of Ethiopia, and King Paul of Greece. She evolved into the consummate hostess, but not just that. She became Tito's confidante and advisor, proving that behind every great man is a woman who probably has to remind him where he left his toupee. In 1955, 2 years after Stalin shuffled off this mortal coil, Nikita Khrushchev and Nikolai Bulganin waltzed into Yugoslavia to resume talks with Tito and normalize relations. Imagine their surprise when they found the Marshal never flying solo. For these Soviet bigwigs, it was a whole new ball game. Stalin had enjoyed the company of beautiful women, but only during celebrations. Jovanka, however, was a permanent fixture at all meetings and even asked for her opinion. This didn't mean Tito was under her thumb. He simply valued the opinions of those he trusted, wife included. Khrushchev and Bulganin, whatever they thought of this, had to grin and bear it. By evening, with political chit-chat wrapped up, they seemed less irked. Khrushchev, under the influence of Slivovitz, Yugoslavia's national drink with a kick stronger than a mule, reportedly tried to kiss Jovanka. She declined with grace, prompting Khrushchev to invite her for a nocturnal garden stroll. Her annoyed hubby intervened with a growl. "It's after midnight. Time for bed." Jovanka became a regular on Tito's foreign state visit circuit. They hit the usual hotspots: Paris, Cairo, Bucharest, and the not-so-usual romantic island of Corfu, where the Greek royals rolled out the red carpet. General Nguyen and his missus played host in Burma, and in Rio de Janeiro, Jovanka stole the show in a green dress and yellow hat, proudly sporting Brazil's colors. Invited by Indonesian President Sukarno for a Bali New Year's bash, the Titos cruised there on their luxury yacht, the Galeb Seagull, loaded with enough Slivovitz to sink a ship. This potent plum brandy spiced up the festivities, with Sukarno nudging Tito to join the Balinese dancers. Tito, never one to miss a twist, ditched his jacket, rolled up his sleeves, and danced with his wife instead. In 1959, Jovanka made her Moscow debut, tagging along with Tito. A snapshot from the visit shows them in the back seat of a car, with Khrushchev riding shotgun. An American journalist noted, "For the first time, Soviet citizens got to see the wives of their political leaders." A memorable moment, clearly thanks to Jovanka Tito. This new era of political pillow talk and diplomatic dances proved that even in the Cold War, the hottest topic could be who was cutting a rug with the Marshal. That the little partisan had become a grand dame was crystal clear during her October 1963 visit to the United States. Sporting a chic black dress and a pink hat, she sat in the White House at the place of honor next to President Kennedy. They chatted like old pals about her resistance days, much to JFK's fascination. When Tito was down with the flu, Jovanka took a break from playing nurse and hit the shops with Angie Biddle, the wife of the chief of protocol. At the National Art Gallery, she admired a Rembrandt, noting there's always something new to discover in his works, and casually mentioning their Belgrade home had several reproductions. Upon encountering Goya's the bookbinder, she quipped, "He is the master." After Tito's recovery, she joined him at the United Nations and then took a jaunt to Stirling Forest. Tito snapped photos of a waterfall, and the power couple dined on hamburgers and fries in a cafeteria, blending in like locals, except for the international intrigue. A year later, after a whirlwind 5-week tour of communist countries, the American Secretary of Agriculture's wife gushed. The wife of Marshal Tito was the only woman who truly played a role in public life. She was the most charming girl of the entire group, a tall, powerful woman, but well-proportioned, beautifully dressed, with pearls, diamond earrings, and impressive rings on both hands. Mrs. Broz was very talkative, and sometimes teased Tito, and she seemed well-informed about everything. Without ever holding a public office or political position, the elegant Jovanka, with her confident demeanor and natural smile, became the face of Yugoslavia. At every official event, she lightened the atmosphere, significantly contributing to her husband's diplomatic juggling act between East and West. Tito deftly exploited Yugoslavia's strategic position to maintain lucrative economic ties with the West, the Soviets, and the so-called developing countries, thereby bolstering Yugoslav market socialism. Furthermore, he, along with India's Nehru and Egypt's Nasser, emerged as a leader of the non-aligned movement. Jovanka's transformation from partisan to First Lady extraordinaire highlighted a remarkable journey, proving that behind every great marshal is a woman who can shop, charm presidents, and discuss art like a pro. Her role in Tito's life wasn't just decorative. She was the secret weapon in Yugoslavia's diplomatic arsenal, making market socialism look effortlessly chic. Politics remained one of the key bonds between Tito and Jovanka, along with her meticulous care for his health, well-being, and whims. If she wore something that displeased him, she'd notice his frown and rush to change faster than a quick-change artist. "But Tito compromises too," she once told a journalist with a laugh. "He even wears the grey sweater I knitted for him. Nothing says marital bliss like forced fashion choices." Was Jovanka Broz Tito a completely happy woman and a content first lady? It sure seemed that way on June 14, 1977, when she shone like a supernova at the reception for the Norwegian Prime Minister. But that was her swan song. After that, Jovanka disappeared from the public eye faster than you could say house arrest. No official explanation was given, but whispers and rumors spread like wildfire suggesting she had been confined to quarters. As Tito aged and his health waned, he increasingly relied on his confidants and close friends. Did Jovanka try to grab power in the midst of this power vacuum? It looked that way. Her house arrest lasted 2 years until Tito, a few months before his death, eased the restrictions, allowing her to roam Ljubljana but forbidding any trips or publicity stunts. Tito died on May 4, 1980, and was buried in Belgrade. Posthumously, Jovanka was gifted a Greek-style villa on Boulevard Mira, but her freedom was short-lived. She was placed under house arrest again immediately after moving in, with a weekly pilgrimage to Tito's grave as her only allowed outing. 16 years later, a journalist from the Yugoslav television channel Studio B scored an interview with the elusive First Lady. Jovanka revealed she had been accused of plotting a coup, but the real aim was to remove her from any influence. "My husband, due to his failing health, couldn't see what was really going on. He had to believe the lies his so-called friends told him. I was the only one who could have exposed those lies, warned Tito, and protected him." Indeed, the multi-ethnic state of Yugoslavia began to unravel faster than a cheap sweater once news spread that the great marshal was terminally ill. Old rivalries between ethnic groups bubbled up like a bad case of acid reflux, and each republic demanded a bigger slice of the Serb-dominated central government pie. The new leadership found common ground on just one issue. None of them wanted a strong Mrs. Tito who could ride the wave of Yugoslav adoration for her charismatic husband to power. After the interview with the Studio B journalist aired in Yugoslavia and then worldwide, reporters from every corner of the globe wanted a piece of Jovanka. She declined all requests, playing hard to get like a celebrity on a social media cleanse. A reporter from the Canadian National Post gave it a shot anyway. "She won't talk to you unless you get official approval," said a security officer assigned to Jovanka by the Yugoslav government 23 years prior. The National Post managed to snag a letter of recommendation from the Federal Ministry of Information, but by then it was too late. The gift of flowers and chocolates was accepted, but she still stonewalled the interview. Desperate to salvage the trip, the Canadians interviewed the security officer, Raya Fatik, who had plenty to spill. Nearing retirement and clearly in a sharing mood, Fatic claimed that Tito, on his deathbed and surrounded by confidants, had drawn up a will in favor of Jovanka and his children. Mysteriously, the document vanished, and Tito's assets were funneled into the Communist Party's coffers. Jovanka ended up with a paltry pension. There were times when she didn't have enough to eat, Fatic said. She would have starved if it weren't for compassionate souls. In February 2001, the Belgrade newspaper Blick reported that the house arrest of 77-year-old Jovanka had been lifted immediately, with no more restrictions or prohibitions. However, the Tito widow continued to be monitored at her own request. All she wants, said her representative and nephew Vlada Zivulovic, is a small apartment, an identity card, and a normal, anonymous life. This modest wish comes from a woman who had lived in luxury as a shining first lady for 25 years, followed by nearly as many years under house arrest. I rule a country with 2 alphabets, 3 languages, 4 religions, and 5 nationalities, living in 6 republics, surrounded by 7 neighboring countries, and involved in 8 international organizations. Tito once boasted. He ruled with an iron fist, dealing ruthlessly with political opponents, yet his charisma and power instincts kept the multi-ethnic state glued together. Jovanka supported him as his confidante, advisor, and representative, but mainly as his wife, ensuring his well-being. She never held political power, and when accused of plotting a coup, she was swiftly and permanently sidelined. Jovanka Broz Tito, a putschist? Only she can answer that question adequately. But how much of a threat can be posed by a woman who wasn't even savvy enough to secure a piece of her husband's inheritance? In the grand soap opera that was Yugoslavian politics, Jovanka's role shifted from leading lady to a sidelined character. Her story highlights the ironies of power. One minute, you're the first lady living in the lap of luxury. The next, you're rationing soup and pining for a small apartment. Her life's dramatic twists would make for a gripping telenovela, proving that sometimes the greatest threats come not from coups, but from the relentless march of fate and bureaucracy. Thank you for watching. If there are other historical figures you wish to see explored, drop a suggestion in the comments.